Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this evening. This is Crafty Adults Watercolor Wreaths. My name is Laura Rice, and I am a librarian here at the Champaign Public Library. If you've been to our Crafty Adults series before, you kind of know the drill. But if you're new, I want to say welcome. Crafty Adults is a series that we host at the library regularly. Before the pandemic, we hosted in person, and we had these lovely classes where folks got together to work on a different creative project, one that can usually be completed within about an hour. Sometimes we just get started and kind of give you the tools so that you can go home and further your craft, but a lot of these in the last few months have been ones that you could create and finish within about an hour or the length of the session. So today is going to be no different. We are hosting a wonderful local artist today. Her name is Joan Jack, and she is going to teach us how to make how to paint a watercolor wreath. So I'm super excited to hear how Joan approaches painting and how the tools she's going to give you so that you can take your watercolor painting either to the next level or so that you can start fresh if you've never painted before. So super excited that we have her today. I kind of think Joan is a little bit of a jack of all trades, if you will. I know her outside of teaching this class, and I'm always impressed with the things that she creates. So we'll be linking her website in the chat so you all can check out her work, because I really do think she's a very fabulous person. So I'm excited to introduce you all to her today. So I'm kind of going to be hosting the webinar, and then Joan is going to be teaching. So I do want to kind of go over a few kind of housekeeping items for you here. I am going to open up the chat right now. A lot of people saying they can't hear me, but I am not muted at all.
And then they said they can hear you.
They can hear me?
Yeah, because I yes. So I think they,
okay.
I think.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was like, I hadn't been in the chat, and then I was like, oh my gosh, there's 8 or 9 or 10 chats now. So I was like, oh no, what's happening? All right, so I'm going to get back into our housekeeping. You all are kind of jumping the gun here because my next thing was going to be, please use the chat feature if you have feedback, if you have questions throughout the evening. So typically in this webinar, what we are doing is we use the chat feature. So if you want to ask a question or share a comment or some feedback, please do so. And what you'll want to do is make sure that if you want to send it to everyone, please choose the option where it says all panelists and attendees. That ensures that everyone in the class actually sees your comment as well, which we like because we enjoy to be able to get a conversation going and just kind of have fun. So please feel free to use the chat. We highly encourage it. If you feel more comfortable speaking, we'd be happy to unmute you. All you need to do is use the raise hand feature in the center. Obviously, both of those things are totally optional, but if you want to interact with us or with your fellow attendees this evening, we highly encourage it. So please consider using those features if you'd like to. If you have a technical difficulty, you can certainly just send it just to the panelists, which will be myself and Joan. However, Joan is going to have her screen primarily focused on the painting and the instruction this evening. So whenever you have a question, what I will be doing is just relaying and asking the question out loud to her. So that's how we're going to structure our class this evening. And I like to give everyone kind of that heads up before we start that that's how we structure the webinar. The final feature is that if you are interested in sharing your screen at the end of the evening, we would love to see your painting. So this is super fun, and I just want to get this in your heads at the beginning too, just if you want to keep that in mind. We'd love to see your work. So you can, towards the end of the evening, I'll kind of put a call out and say, is anyone interested in sharing your painting? And what we will do is go through and add you as a panelist, which is like a presenter in our webinar, so that your screen can be shared with everyone. So keep that in mind that that's an option. And let me make sure, I'm gonna go through my checklist real quick here and make sure I shared all the info with you that I needed to. And I think I have. I hope you all will be patient with us this evening. We're going to be doing a couple different like camera changes that I haven't personally done in a webinar before, so bear with us. Joan's going to have two different views that you're going to be able to see. One will be of her painting and one will be of her face when we meet her. So I think without further ado, we are going to go ahead and meet our lovely teacher, Joan Jack. So here's Joan.
Hi there. Can everybody see me and hear me? Okay. And if you want to, because I'm really small on my screen, so I could probably figure out how to make myself bigger, but here we go. All right. I am in my studio. Welcome to my studio. It's in my backyard, and I am from Old Town Flowers. I used to grow flowers, and I still grow flowers, but I don't grow them for market anymore. Right now, I have a couple of jobs, and I do things like this on the side, and I'm so happy to be teaching. Will be so happy to be back in a classroom with real live people, but for right now, this is how it has to be, and that's okay. I've been watercolor painting pretty much my whole life. About 4 years ago, I decided that I was going to start doing it again really seriously, and you know, got new paints, got some brushes, and really went at it. And I really enjoy making watercolor wreaths, and it kind of ties in with how I like making flower wreaths, or we call them flower crowns, and I teach classes on that too. I've taught classes on that before at Allerton, which was really fun. So today we're going to be making wreaths. Let's talk a little bit about, so that was kind of my spiel. That's my introduction. If you have any questions about like what I do or painting in general, you can always contact me later. The tools that you're going to need for today that you should have in front of you are a piece of paper or two pieces of paper that were in your kit, and your paints, and whatever watercolor paints. The paints that were in the kit were the praying paints, which are great. You're going to need two brushes, a big brush and a little brush. So the little brush can be the brush that came in with the praying. I think that those were included. And then a bigger brush. And it doesn't have to be this big, but just a different size so that we can get some different lines. You're gonna want to have water next to you if you don't have clean water. I like to put my water in a white container or a clear container so that you can see it when your water is getting super dirty. I have two waters here actually, so I have two big containers of water. So if you think that you might need another one, now would be a good time to go grab another water so you don't have to get up in the middle and go get fresh water. I also like to have a paper, you can use paper towel, but I just use an old like flour sack towel, and that's for blotting your brush when you're painting, and you'll see that how I do that when we are painting. You're also going to need a pencil and an eraser. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. This is just a number 2 pencil. If you have fancy and you have some kneadable eraser, you can have that too. You might want a pencil sharpener too, just in case your pencil lead breaks, or have another pencil. And that is it. So I think that what we want to do is transfer over to our other view so that
Our other camera angle.
Yep, I think we're ready for that now.
Okay, y'all are gonna have to just give me some grace here as this is our big transition. So I just need to find We have Joan. If you hear me refer to like Joan 1 and Joan 2, we've got Joan's phone here, and then we've also got Joan here on the computer. So let me pop out and see if I can find you in the waiting room here.
Okay.
Before I send you away.
Okay.
Because I'm not seeing you like I was earlier, so I need to see what's going on. Always fun with technology, you guys. So use this time if you have not gathered all your supplies. Go ahead and just make sure you've got all that ready. And we're going to go ahead, and I see what I'm doing now, so I'm going to go ahead and transition our camera angles for everybody.
Super.
Okay, great. I want to make sure everybody, can you see Joan's, her paper and her paints right here?
And can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. I can hear you, Ellie.
Great.
Yes and yes. Thank you so much. It really helps us if we know that.
Yes. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is, while I'm going to show you, everything is on here. Okay. And if you can't, just holler. Okay. If things are off of the screen.
I will. When you set
up, okay. Well, when you set up your paper, have your paper, and whether you're right-handed or left-handed, this is kind of important. I always tell my students to put their paint and your water on the same side of your dominant hand that you're going to be using, because you don't want to be coming across, like getting paint and then coming all the way across your paper, especially if you've already done something, and have it drip and ruin your painting. So that's pretty important. So what I want you to do is use your bigger brush and dip it, just kind of get it wet in your water and dip it, add a few drops without touching the actual cakes of paint, and add a few drops into each of your colors here, because this is going to be activating your paints to get ready for painting. Even if you're not going to use them all, if you don't think you're going to use them all, put the water in there anyway to activate your paint. And this is what you're going to do with any sort of hard pan watercolors, which are, if you don't have these and you have some that are in a tube, they're already wet, and so you don't need to really activate them. You dilute them more than activating them. I'm going to show you a couple things before we start to get you thinking about what shapes of leaves and flowers you can use. So we're going to practice our leaf and flower shapes, and you can do, just some plain old leaf shapes like this, like kind of always remind me of things I used to draw when I was a kid. You can do some amorphous leaf shapes like this. You can do vines. You can do kind of more like eucalyptus-y leaf shapes. You can do curling things like this right here.
That one's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But what I have something here because I wanted to show everybody, when we're doing this, don't think that you have to make things look real, because when you are painting, especially like this with flowers, these are the same kind of flowers. I just got these out of my garden. These are both a clematis flower, but look, they look different. They don't all have the same number of petals. They don't all look the same. I didn't get another one of this, but that's also a clematis too. And so I just want to remind everybody that we're not here to exactly recreate what is out there in nature, okay? If you want to do that, that's cool, but don't feel like you have to do anything specific. Like, I don't even know what kind of flowers these blue flowers are, okay? So don't get hung up on making something that is an actual thing. This is the other thing I was going to say is if you want to practice doing some evergreen type leaves, you don't have to do a summer flower wreath. You can do an evergreen wreath if you want to think about that, because it's the same process that we use, the same steps. It's just different shapes and maybe just a little bit less color, just more greens and golds. So right now, what I want you to do is just practice. We're gonna, I'll be talking for a little while, and then we'll be working. And that's a really good time if you have a question to raise your hand or type it in the chat, or, you know, if you don't want to talk on the video, you don't have to, but that's a good time to ask questions and say, Joan, I don't understand this, or what do I do about this? All those things. So when you're making leaves, you're really going to be using, I want to make sure you can see that green. I'm going to scooch you over just a little bit. Okay. You know, leaves are usually green.
So we're gonna, hey Joan, we do have a question.
Yeah.
Does it matter which side of the paper we use?
Oh, it does not matter which side of the paper you use. And if you are practicing and you're like, oh, I don't like this, just turn your paper over and you can use the other side. They should be about the same.
Yeah, I feel like it's only slightly different. I think there's like a little more tooth on one side, but
right. And it doesn't matter. So it's whatever side you feel more drawn to. I say use that.
Okay.
All right.
And I do have someone also asking real quick, and so I'm gonna just address this over the speaker. Someone wants to know if we can make the active camera. So I think Joan's with the painting larger. I would normally type this out, but in case anyone else is having a similar issue, I'm actually in the webinar right now as a test person. So she is full screen for me, but the camera angle is vertical versus being horizontal. So I don't know if that's something that anyone else has noticed that is a little different for this webinar. So it will take up less of the screen. If you're having trouble seeing the active camera or like Joan painting, check and make sure that you have the view at the top set as speaker view, not as gallery view. Gallery view is going to show you all the active cameras, whereas speaker view is just going to show you the camera that's in use right now. So Janet, who asked the question, feel free to just let me know if that didn't address your question and I will just type with you, but I wanted to address that for everyone in case they were having similar issues. So thank you, and we can move on.
Yeah, hopefully everybody gets their camera. I know this stuff is so, every time you think you got it figured out, something changes. So I really like these paints because there's no white in there. I think the beginning watercolorists should not ever have a white included because we don't need white. Our white comes from our paper. And if you can see what I'm doing here, I'm leaving. If you want to leave a highlight, like if you're doing a leaf and you want to have it be highlighted somewhere, you could also do it in the middle. Like if you're going to do a leaf like this, you could always have a highlight in the middle if you want it to be like that, and then come back later and put in some veins. So what we're doing right now is just practicing leaf shapes. And you see how I let this one dry a little bit and then I went back over it with the other color, and that adds some depth to it. I just dropped that wet paint right onto the almost dry other leaf. Let's see, what other kind of shapes? If you wanted to do oh, let me talk about this color blending here. Is all I did was mix blue and green. These are both just blue and green, but this one on the bottom has more blue in it. So when you're blending, think about, okay, do I want it to look darker? Do I want it to look lighter? And if you want it to look lighter, dab your brush into the water, get a little bit off of there, and then you just have a very diluted amount of paint on your paintbrush. And you can draw a stem first. If you want to have more idea of where your leaves are going to be, leave some white in the middle if you want. We're going to let those dry. If you want straight up, let's see, you can also mix, I just want to say straight up evergreen. To see if you want to do like pine. And this is the point where maybe the big brush might be a little bit too big and you want to use your smaller one to draw. If you want to draw pine leaves, pine needles, and think about, okay, they're coming from here. If you want to draw your practice drawing like, okay, this is the branch that they're on. And this is all going to be incorporated into your wreath. And rinse your brush. You're changing colors. Rinse your brush really well and dab it onto your towel. All right, and then you can add on your pine needles. But do you see how my pine needles aren't actually touching my branch because my branch is still new? If that green went right, if I touched it on there, I'll show you what happened. If I touched it on there, then the brown is going to go right into your green. So keep it separate, and unless something is totally dry, you can paint over it. Otherwise, you're going to get things bleeding together, unless that is what you would like to see. If you want things bleeding together, you can do what we call wet into wet. And then you just kind of drop the color in. So see how these guys are dry now, or drier, I guess I could say. You could go back in. So when we're painting today and we're doing our wreath, it might, flower wreaths, we might not finish it because you might have to wait for some parts to dry before you can go back in. Let's do some flower shapes. Rinse out your brush really well. And then this is where it can get complicated, because if you want yellow, like if you want to do sunflower or something, and you already have, your water already has blue or brown or something in it, you're going to want to switch to clean water, or you're going to be, it's really hard to get a pure yellow when your water is already a different color. All right, so let's say we're going to do, who knows what this is? I don't know. You just can do some petals and then let it sit there for a minute. Now that's a pretty thick yellow that I just made there. If I wanted to make it a little bit more transparent, all I would do is grab some water and add just a little bit of paint and then keep diluting it, over here. Oh, I got a little green in there. And so you can make another flower over here that's not as bold. And that's a good way to create depth in your wreath, is you have some of the flowers and leaves are bold. They have bright like this and dense with color. But some of them are like this that aren't, because it creates the sense of depth in there. And the way that you overlap these is you have to wait for this guy to dry before you can kind of do the other one right behind it. Otherwise it'll bleed into it. So let me show you what I mean. Like if you wanted that effect, like if you want to make a center of this flower, you wanted to kind of make it have some orange in the middle, we could do this one, make it orange. This one is kind of a thicker combination over here. Let me look at my notes, make sure I'm hitting everything.
So I have a question for you, Joan.
Yeah.
So because I wonder if people are thinking about this. So how do you control how pigmented some of the color is on the paper versus when it's light? So how are they at home able to kind of figure that out?
So when you activated your watercolors, you made a pretty strong concentration. And so that's like straight out of the pan. What I'll do is I'll take some of that paint out of the pan, out of the color. This is purple, and I'll put it over here in my palette. And then I'll go kind of, not quite rinse my brush, but grab some fresh water, put it in the palette with it, put some more in there, drip some more. So what you're doing is creating a less concentrated purple right now. And then what I like to do is then rinse my brush completely before I go and test it. Rinse my brush, dab it off on my paper towel, and then I can go and test it. And look at the difference now of what I'm working with. And I have a whole pile of that quality purple in my palette now. And usually what I have my students do is go through and do a value study of making it dark to light. And I try to get them to do it in about 12 steps. And they realize, okay, that might be a little bit harder than it seems, because you're having to control how much paint is coming out of your brush. But for today, just know the more concentrated, the darker that it's going to be. And what a lot of students will do is want to paint with that really concentrated color all the time. And I suggest you just make a little pool over here and start with the less concentrated right now. So let's see if we can make a clematis out of there, out of the purple. You know, they have these little things on the end. If you have some real life flowers to look at, even better, right? Well, I'm not fitting them all in here, but that's okay because we don't mind. So this is
nature.
It's nature. This is my less concentrated purple. So I'm just drew those lines and then I'm filling them in. It's going into this other one, which is what we want in the wreath eventually. So, okay. And then while this is drying, because this less concentrated, this dilute purple will dry a lot faster than if you just lay on a whole thick layer of paint, okay? So while this is drying, what I want to talk about is thin and thick lines, because if you're going to be doing stems and or evergreen, seeing how your brush can go from that thick to how thin it can go. So what kind of quality of a line can you get out of there? And just practicing using that very tip, because you can, even with the large brushes, you can get a pretty thin line. So a lot of times when I go paint outside, I'll only bring one brush. It's usually smaller than this, though. I think it's like a 10 is what I usually bring. This is a 12 right here. So even though, you know, it might just be one brush, we call this a round brush, you can get a lot of line quality out of there. And so maybe you're going to do, I don't know, maybe you want to put feathers in your wreath. Draw a feather, and at the bottom it has all these little funny things that come out. And then it has the quill here. Let's see. If you want to do purple, but maybe a little bit with a little bit of red. And if your paints get mixed in your palette or in their pan, don't worry about it. You can just take a paper towel or towel and wipe them out. Usually what I do when I'm done is just run it underneath the sink, and that's how I wash them. I know that there are those out there. Method. I know, it's like some people will disagree with that method, but
I think it's wonderful.
I do too. And I've taught elementary kids, so it's like it's the fastest way to just clean a bunch of paints.
Yeah. Also, I think too, it's a good reminder for folks, like especially if you have kids and you're wanting to do some painting, like all is not lost when that green or when that yellow looks like green and brown and gross. You can probably revive it.
Yes, you can revive it. So this is kind of dry over here. So I'm just using, this isn't even that concentrated. Now you can go back, add some detail. You can add some outline, but it's a little bit wet there. And that's our clematis flower here. It's still a little wet, but I think that's cool how that turned out over there. See how that bleeds into there?
I think too, something that's really fun with watercolor, and it's such a great, people are intimidated by it, I think, but it's such a nice paint, like a medium to start with, because it is kind of forgiving in that you don't have to know how to draw a flower to paint a flower, I don't think.
Right. I totally agree.
And it's just a little bit different than acrylic paint because it is a little bit more malleable and you can kind of move it around a little bit. Acrylic isn't quite the same. So I think a lot of people have painted with acrylics that are scared to do watercolor, but I think it's really fun and there's a lot you can do with it. You don't have to be as like scared of it as, I don't know if any of you are scared of watercolor, if you've ever done it before, but Joan is making it look really easy, I will say, because she's got like such wonderful line quality, but it's a fun medium.
It is, and it takes, but you know, anything that you're practicing at, you will get better at. But for right now, what I want you to focus on, especially if you're a beginner, is to not be using really thick paint and trying to achieve this perfect line. Because see how messy this is over here? Really, if you look at it, it's pretty messy. But when it gets dry, and then I could add a couple more details into there, it will look like a clematis flower. You add the vines on it, whatnot. Just don't get too precious with it, is what I always say. And I don't know if this is dry yet. Nope, it's not, but that's okay. This paper doesn't dry as quick, and also it isn't. So that might be something that I would be like, ooh, because I was going to draw a black line in the middle, but we could always make it a black feather. A black feather with purple feather. Yeah. So yeah, you can always try to fix if you do something on your final wreath and you're like, what did I do? And you need help today, just let me know. There's usually something you can do to fix it. What else was I going to just say about when it's really dry, like in the summertime, if I paint outside and it's sunny and things just dry instantly, it's really hard to paint because you can't do any of that wet into wet. But I really I love painting outside and just sitting there, and it's kind of like a race against the sun, because what you see is always changing because the sun is changing its angle. Okay, let's just do about 2 more minutes of practicing our leaf and flower shapes. So think about, right now I want you to just kind of think about what kind of flowers you might want to paint. And I'm thinking about a flower that I'm going to paint here, and I'm going to do a little practice.
Yeah, and if any of you want to like take a moment now too and like look up a picture of a flower on your phone, if you want to like try to work from a picture, that'd be great too. I have to say, maybe some of you can tell by the questions I'm asking, but I do paint with watercolors as well, and it is so relaxing to sit here and just watch Joan paint. I would be having a hard time actually painting right now if I had some in front of me, because I'm just like zoning out watching her.
I love watching those time-lapse videos on Instagram of people painting anything.
Yeah. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to do some poppies, which require they require some drying in between, I think, but that'll be okay. And so poppies have this kind of cup shape to them, but also they also have the buds, and so you can also be doing these buds here. And now this is a good time to show you about leaving a white space, so that I would let dry, and then later I would come back and just fill that white part in with red, but it has to be totally completely dry around there, or otherwise your red will bleed in. And so that's how you would add that. Okay. So let's do this, because I want to give you plenty of time to do the drawing and to do your wreath. So what we're going to do is keep your practice sheet nearby, because this is a really good place that if you're thinking about blending a color to put on your wreath, you can always blend it in your palette and then test it on your practice sheet of paper, or test how dilute or how transparent your mix is that you just made in your palette. One more thing before we move on, because this is, as you saw here, this is pretty important. It's important to go light to dark. So I didn't put the brown in here first in the middle of this flower. I did the yellow first and then I added the brown. And same thing with here. I did the lighter color, the background of the flower, and then you add whatever darker, if you want to add shadows or details or whatever, you work light to dark. And this is why when you want to have white, you leave it in watercolor. You make sure that that highlight is left alone. And for a fun fact, let me turn around here real quick and grab this. Some people, when they're doing really fine drawings, you can buy this stuff called, I call it liquid frisket, and here it does say liquid frisket drawing gum. Yeah, and it's like tinted this color so that you can still see that it's on your work, but it's kind of we call a mask, and it will go down and on your paper and prevent the paint from absorbing in and keep areas white, especially if you're doing a really detailed space, like you want to mask out a person's face or white caps on water or something like that. That is really handy. But then you have to scrape.
So helpful.
Yes, you have to scrape it off in time though, because I've learned that if you leave it on too long, it will take off the paper too.
That is correct.
So do not do that. Yeah,
learn the hard way.
Yep, I've learned the hard way about that. All right, so let's switch to our piece of paper, and for the class's sake, I'm putting my paper in the portrait mode, but you do not have to draw your wreath in the portrait mode. And in fact, if you want to go and chop off your paper and make a square, if that helps you if you want to make it round, if that helps you with your sense of space and your sense of planning, make your paper whatever shape you want, but I suggest keeping it as big as you can. We don't want you to try to be making a little wreath and a 4x4 piece. But if you want it to be square, go ahead and do that. This is where you need to grab your pencil and your eraser, because you want to get a general idea of where you're going to place what in your wreath. And remember, it does not have to be round. It can be a U shape, which this is technically a U shape that's not completed. This is kind of like an oval here. And then did I show this one earlier? I can't remember.
Oh, you didn't.
So this one isn't even a wreath. It's just kind of like this idea of maybe you could do it all connected, but then later you come back with either dark blue or black or dark gray and just fill in behind. And so that's always fun too. If you wanted to do kind of like one little vignette of flowers and then just do the background dark, you could do that. And that's really you definitely have to make sure all your flowers are dry. So I hope that wasn't too many choices for you guys. And then here's another idea. This isn't even a wreath. It's just flowers. So one more thing, if you want to make a word, this is the time to do that. And so I was thinking maybe I can make a word if I could be planning enough. And I'm going to do here.
Can I interrupt just a moment?
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know from past experience, Joan, why don't you talk about how light or hard they should be drawing with their pencil right now?
Yes. Oh, I have it in my notes too. When you are drawing with your pencil, you want it to be very light, because if you are pressing down hard and then you are like, oh, I don't really like that line, and then you go to erase it, if you're pressing down hard, not only will it leave a trace of the ink, it will be pressing down into your paper and actually create an indentation in your paper that you can't get rid of. And so when then you paint over it later, it will show. And so we want to be really light with our pencil right now. And this is where it is helpful if you have art pencils to use a harder pencil, like a 4H or what else? Does it go up to 8H?
I always forget that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go into Art Coop and they'll help you.
Yes, go into the Art Coop. Yep, that's why I got my liquid frisket. And I decided that I'm going to do this M as a regular M. I'm doing a word. And it's
Tell us
going to
what
be,
you're writing, because you're drawing so light
it's very,
that
okay.
we can't see it.
Okay. It is going to say summer. That's what it's going to say. And I think that I'm going to do some, so here, and I can do it a little bit darker so you guys can see. I just won't do it
There, that's good.
super
And
dark.
we do have some new information this just in from our art coop representative, Anna.
Hi,
9H. 9H is pretty common. Sometimes you can get up to a 12H. So
Dang,
those would
that's
be the
hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a pretty hard pencil.
Yeah. So the higher that number, then the harder it is. And it's the less lead, or the less, of that lead will come out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make, in general, you want to just plan out where your flowers are going to be, your big flowers. So it's like, we want to remember things really are pleasing to our eyes when they are in odd numbers. So I'm making some sunflowers here. This is not exactly how they have to look when I paint them, but I'm holding space for them. Okay. And also, I'm erasing this because I want to talk about overlapping, because I do want to do 3, but I think that I'm going to make a bigger one here, right behind the other one. So you can overlap some of those bigger flowers. Remember, things look good in odd numbers. So 3, 5, 7. Rule of threes is usually what I go by. That's for anything. It's like decorating your house. I mean, I guess unless you like things very, very symmetrical, which then you wouldn't
I'm a
want.
rule of 3 person.
Yeah, I like the rule of 3, especially when we're doing these kinds of things. So have some main flowers. Let's see what other flowers I could do. I'm trying to think of summer flowers. Do some zinnias, which are basically just like your traditional looking, like the kind of flowers I always drew when I was a kid. You know, those kinds of things.
So beautiful.
I love zinnias. And you can also think about making some of your flowers from the side. So it's where the petals on one side are really short, and you extend them on the other side, fine. But then on the other side, they're kind of short. Hold some spaces over here.
And too, so if people want to kind of map out their wreath, they can, but if they want it to be more organic, the pencil drawing is kind of optional. So it's just a little map for you.
Yep.
Not trying to overstep here, but I just want to let people know they've got options.
Yeah, totally. If you don't want to have a drawing, if you're like, nope, that's too organized for me, that's totally fine. And then I'm just going to add, so it's also about having at least 3 sizes of flowers, or 3 types of flowers. So you have a big flashy flower, big flower that will take up space. You have maybe a medium flower, and then you have a little small flower. And then I always like to add a little sparkle, and that you don't even have to draw in. And it's so funny, I just realized, because this is how you make a bouquet too. This is how you make a flower arrangement. I was like, oh, it's the same idea. You have the focus flower, focal, filler, and the sparkle ones. Because this is the focal, and then there's filler, and then there's always something that's a little bit, going off and has a little sparkle, is what I call it.
That's good for everyone as you're doing some summer flower arranging. I had not heard that. I'd heard, focal and filler, but sparkle, I'm going to be using that.
It's called something else with an F, and I can't think of what it is. Focal, filler.
Like sparkle.
I like sparkle too. It works. It's probably something I can't think of. So let's see. What time is it? Yeah, we'll get about 5 more minutes for this. And also, this is a good time to, if you need more water, to go get clean water, because let's see, I don't think you guys can see. Like, look at that water. I'm not going to use that when I start my new wreath. When I start my new painting here, I'm going to use my clean water I have over here. And then if you want to block out some leaves, you can. What I'm going to do is sunflower, I'm going to actually do a couple of larger leaves because sunflowers do have big leaves, and it's kind of about balancing it, feeling like, okay, what side needs a little bit more green? So that's 3 big leaves. I'll do this. And I don't usually draw in all of my leaves. I don't, sometimes I'll add more flowers too as I'm doing it to see where my colors are.
Yeah, it's like you plan to a certain extent and then kind of let the paint and like your creativity take over once you're in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that I did have. Okay. Because you want to leave enough space also so that if you want to add, something in there, everything is it's just the general idea, general layout. So I'm not going to do a poppy, I guess. I decided, okay. Sometimes what I have in my head and that doesn't end up translating. Oh, what would be really cool is to have a grape, a couple of grapes. Grapevine. We're going to do this. And then grapevines have those cool little curly things. And then that'll be purple. Which purple, if you look at a color wheel, which we didn't make our own color wheels today, but that is something I do with my beginning watercolor students, is we'll make a color wheel and see what's a primary color, what's a secondary color, what colors complement each other, and then talk about color mixing. So what are warm colors and what are cool colors? So primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. Because if you make a color wheel, red and blue make purple. And I'm not going to go through all of it right now. But when you do this, when you think about what's opposite each other, what's a complementary color on the color wheel, so red and green are opposite complementary colors. When you mix those together, they make a sort of a brown. And so this is a way to get different shades of browns or shades that aren't just straight out of your palette. But
yeah, I don't know about you, but I like never use in my watercolor black, brown, or white, but I like never use those because I just make my own and they're so much more like deep and vibrant.
Yes, they are. But be forewarned to try to keep the number of colors you mix together to 2, maybe 3, because they can get muddy. It can get muddy real quick, and then you just end up with this gross, weird color that it doesn't really exist in nature or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's so true.
Okay. So where you want to start is the light. It's the lightest color. So if you have a yellow, you can get your clean water out. And I always think so. This is the brush that came with the praying, and I'm always like, oh, it's dirty, but it's not, because it was white when I got it. It just got a little bit. The first paint I used was purple, so it got a little bit stained, and I keep thinking no, but it's just fine. It'll do the yellow just fine here. So I'm getting yellow out of,
Oh no, I was just gonna say too, you can always test it on your test sheet. If you're not sure if your brush is clean, dip it in water and then kind of do a couple brush strokes on your test, and that way you could tell if it's clean or not.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll stop interrupting and let Joan just teach.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Because, all right, so I'm going to go and do my sunflowers here. And the thing about painting yellow over your drawing is sometimes you're going to see the pencil underneath, which is okay, because that is something that watercolor does sometimes. So you're going to go around, and I'm making this pretty vibrant, pretty thick. Not trying to cover up the pencil, but I wanted to make it so that I don't have to do a lot of thin layers to build up that color. I just wanted to do a couple layers. So that's yellow. And sunflowers don't always have to be yellow. They can be orange or shades of like pink or dark red. There's all kinds of crazy kinds of sunflowers right now that you can grow and look at to get an example. So go around, find your lightest colors of your flowers, block them in. This one is going to be a little bit different because this one has longer, it's going to have longer petals. And it's okay if the paint goes in the middle of this because we're going to do brown in the middle. I'm planning on doing brown. I planted
Oh, you go ahead.
I was going to say I planted a bunch of sunflowers, but they haven't come up yet because I planted them only about a few days ago. So I'm pretty excited.
Once you plant sunflowers once, I feel like you'll always get like a random volunteer sunflower.
Yes, I have some volunteer sunflowers in the yard. I was like, oh, welcome back. And a couple of them I moved to where they were going to be better situated.
They're always there. I do want to mention to everyone too, which I think you saw when you joined, but we are recording the webinar. So if you're watching today and not doing as much painting, or you haven't wanted to actually start your final wreath, that's totally fine, because this whole thing is being recorded and we will be uploading it to YouTube. So you'll be able to watch it again and kind of listen to some of Joan's wonderful instruction later on too. So nobody needs to, it's like a tranquil experience. We don't need to freak out about finishing our painting or missing anything.
Yeah, because there was one comment in the beginning that was somebody couldn't get their internet to work.
I wonder if there's an outage, because we had a few people actually mention that later too.
Oh,
so
no.
We had a few people have to drop out because their internet wasn't working. So I was like, dang, I wonder if they'll have the same provider, which is all at once.
Oh, that's a bummer. Yeah. Okay, so there's a hair sticking out of here. So sometimes your brush bristles will fall out. You gotta get them out of there, because otherwise they'll be messing up your painting if you're trying to do something pretty exact. So these are going to be my zinnias. And then here's something that'll really blow your mind. You can move your paper and do it. And I hope that I'm still, I'm still on there, right?
Good. Yeah.
For me, wonderful. Yeah, I just want to make sure you can still see, but you can move your paper, especially if you're working outside on a clipboard or something, or a painting board. You can just switch it around so that you can reach the side that you need to reach with your whatever hand you use for painting, and you don't have to you won't smudge anything that's under there. I don't even really know how many petals most zinnias have. I think it's very random. But this is the color that I'm making them. So what we're doing is just laying in the groundwork here of the flowers. Not all of them, but the beginning ones, because then we're going to add some leaves. And see how I'm trying to stay away the pink from the yellow? Because I know if that pink touches that yellow, it'll just feed right into it.
That sunflower would be a goner. It'd be one of those variegated ones.
Yeah, we can make it work. It would be okay. I'm also leaving the summer, the word, until last too. because my hand is over here. I don't want it to go get all smeared. So that's that. So I'm gonna rinse pretty well and then dab on my, see how down here I tested my color because I knew this isn't gonna be part of my final project. So what am I gonna do? These cosmos are gonna be, I think that they're gonna be that purple. Oh no, because my grapes are gonna be purple. Let's do some grapes. I just have a couple grapes. Then I'm gonna have to put another one up here. So for these, it would be really cool if I could leave a white spot in every single one, but we'll see how that goes. If it's in most of them, it's okay. Then it'll look like shiny. You need to refill, you'll need to refill your paint every once in a while.
It's crazy how just adding a simple little highlight on an object suddenly like makes it look so much more real. I think it's something when you first start painting or drawing, you don't know about it. And then once you see it, you see it. And you're like, oh.
Yep. That is another really good exercise, is just to draw. I have students draw circle or paint circles, balls, really. So they're supposed to be spheres. And then we'll do a bunch of different ones where the light is coming from different angles and draw where the highlight is and where the shadow is, and paint and shade in with your paint, your watercolor, where those things are, so that you can understand when you are trying to create that depth using the shadow and the highlight, you know how to do. You can get some practice with that.
Yeah, and you guys, I did put the link to Joan's website, which it's in our event information as well. But so if she does offer some, classes again in the future, if you stay tuned with her website, she'll have all that information listed. So yeah, it sounds like you offer a lot of different types of classes. So I think that's cool for people to just keep in mind.
Yes, I do. And I will always post up, and usually I have tickets through Eventbrite is how I do it. Not cool. For the last year, but yeah, it's how I usually do it. Okay, yeah, and then go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was just doing some filler. You're teaching now.
So, okay, I was gonna say, there's my grapes, but I feel like that's weird, so I'm gonna just add a few more up here because I feel like it needs to be balanced with something over here. And just think about, where all your colors are and how that's going to look in the end. Okay. We're just going to do a couple there. But now we have to decide what color these guys are going to be, which I think they're going to be kind of like a turquoise blue, which is nothing. We don't even know what these are. I guess I could have made them foxgloves, but this is what they're going to be. Add a little bit more blue in here to that blue-green from my leaf color. I'm going to make it a little bit, add some more water so it's dilute. And then these, I'm not going to leave any white in these. I'm just going to make them all kind of this medium blue here. And I am using my small brush for this because I feel like I had more control over, especially because I started with those petals on the sunflower. All right. How's everybody's stuff going? I hope it's going okay. This is
do you guys want to check in with us? It's about 8 o'clock, so we've been in our class about an hour, which I can't even believe. So if you guys feel comfortable, just check in the chat and let us know how you're doing. That'll kind of help us see where folks are at and what's going on.
Because I can't see you.
I know it's kind of different since the camera angle is, of course, facing the painting. Joan hasn't been able to see any of the questions or anything that's come through, so she's almost kind of on her own.
I know, and that's why I was just kind of like, my mind started wandering, and I thought, no, I'm here with all of you, and I just can't see you, but it is so wonderful to be here with all of you. But this is what the painting is, this total, it can be this immersive experience, even if you're just painting shapes and lines, it's just making it flow and seeing it go onto the paper. I find it very relaxing, especially if you just say, it's okay, it is what it is. It's not, we aren't setting out to, you know, win an award or anything like this. So now I'm going to add some of the leaves. And this, I'm going to do these big ones first. These are the sunflower leaves. And I want to make that point really, if you really wanted to be specific and really remind yourself about what their shape was, you could go and look at a picture. I am going to leave a little white on that. That one, it was just too concentrated, so I just get a little water, dab it on my towel. And if you are doing this and you're like, oh, I'm going to work on something else, and you leave this and you let it dry, and when you come back and you try to fill in the rest of that leaf with color, you're going to get a line. And so if you don't want to have those lines, you have to fill in your whole shape of what you're doing before it dries. Oh, I forgot to leave the white on there. That's okay. We could talk about, if you do something like this and you're like, oh, I forgot to leave the white. You can do what we call lifting color. You can either do it with your brush, get your brush super dry and clean. You can go back and lift some color out of there. And every time after I'm touching my brush to my paper, I'm then putting it on my super dry towel and getting out all that color. And you see how it left that whiter space in the middle? Or you can just straight up take your paper towel or your dish towel and just press it on there. And you're lifting all the color. See how the color all lifted out of there? And that's really handy if you make a mistake. Sometimes it'll still have a little bit of color on the paper, but you can get most of it off. So there, that's a little bit lighter to leave the middle.
Thank you for sharing that technique. I think that's super helpful for people as they're painting.
Yes.
Lisa says lovely, so she's
you.
enjoying your painting.
Oh, thank you. All right, so there's some leaves, and even, is this dry yet? No, but we can add a little shadow here on this side. Add a little bit more paint over here. And a little bit here. And a little bit here. And then the next thing I think I'm going to do is the middle. So the middle of these sunflowers. I feel like that's what we need to do next. And this, I'm actually going to use the brown and mix it with that yellow I had over there from doing the petals. Well, that brown's just going to really make my water dirty here, but that's okay. And that's, I hope you can see that. I'm just adding more water because I want to make it a pretty transparent brown, because I can always add more paints into there. All right. So for the middle, what I think I'm going to do is kind of testing to make sure that this is all dry. I'm not going to do it totally solid. You'll see why in a minute. For that first paint, for that first layer, I'm going to do a couple layers here, because it's building up color and depth through putting on several light layers. It's called glazing. And some watercolor artists would do a lot of glazing. I mean, you can do 50 layers, but it creates this awesome sense of depth in your painting the more layers you do. All right, so rinse that guy off, and then we're going to go back, and I really like this brush, the one that's came in the paint set. We're going to go back and do some more leaves, and we're going to let's see here. I'm going to do this, and we're going to make some kind of yellowish, greenish leaves for these guys. These are going to be, let me think what shape you're going to be. It's going to be kind of, ooh, that was way too strong. So grab some more water if something's too strong, and then just go on and see, you can just dilute it here. These are going to be like this. Kind of, I don't know, is that too, can you see that? Is that too light?
No, I can see it.
Okay, good. These are going to be the leaves that are around the blue flowers. And right now I'm just going to do the leaf shape, and then I'm going to let it dry and go back and add the stem in the middle. You don't have to do the same thing everywhere here.
So I want to point out, maybe this is obvious to everyone else, but just as someone watching this class too, I think it's so important to remember exactly what Joan is doing, which is she's pairing different types of leaves with different flowers and doing that consistently throughout the wreath. So that's what gives it variety, but also like a little bit more, you know, realistic qualities too, where you're seeing that consistency. It's not just like random leaves wherever. You can really see a specific type of flower in the wreath. So I think that is something I haven't always like followed, that making wreaths. So that's something I'm thinking about just with some of my own work too.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It's just also, it's like the rule of three. It's what our eye is really, it's pleasing to our eye because it's also a pattern, and it's creating this rhythm within the work. Is that, okay, you see it here, but you also see it here.
Yeah, you said like the key word there, rhythm. It is creating rhythm within the painting. So
yeah,
I love that.
And so I think that I'm going to use I'm just going to add a little bit more green in here. This might be almost the same. And then we're going to do some zinnia leaves, which are kind of like just small. They're a lot like the sunflower leaves coming out. My leaf ran into my grapes over here, but it looks really cool. I like what happened there. That's okay. It was a happy accident. And this is where it's like, okay, I'm going to make this leaf go right over that sunflower. And I'm actually going to make another one kind of go over the sunflower here too. And there's no zinnia down here, but if I had one, I would make it go over that sunflower. You could kind of make it go over this grape, even though you can still see it through. It's not totally opaque, which is okay. And then we're letting that dry. So you see how then it's like, I did my leaves, I'm letting them dry, but now look at what I can go back and do. I can go back and grab some more of that brown that's in my palette and go. And now this time I'm going to leave the spaces that I'm not painting, not in the white. I'm going to make sure to cover up my white, but I'm going to leave them in the brown. So then it's like, I'm covering up all the white, but then still leaving some texture in behind there. I'm a little overzealous there. And then come back over here, leave some space. So then they're all brown, but they still have some texture, and I'll do one more on those. So that's that's how you can kind of work around working on the same painting, but letting parts of it dry before you come back to it. And I'm using this kind of red and purple combination here to go back into my zinnias. And I'm just going to add darker in the middle, and then on one side of the petal or in the middle. And this just kind of gives it a definition. Like I said, we're not trying to make things look exactly like they do. We're not trying to be ultra reality. We're just trying to make it more than just one color here. I think this one needs to be darker all on that side. And we'll go back in a minute and do the middle of those zinnias. Do them like a brown black. Now I'm trying not to touch, whoop, I got it in there. I was trying not to touch my green. And this is also a case where you can do the lifting, where you can.
Hey, Joan.
Yeah.
We just lost your video.
Oh no. Oh no. What happened?
That's okay. I think you're
it
still
says low
here.
battery. Huh?
Okay, there we go.
Yay, it said low battery.
Okay. Okay, you were still there, but
let me just make sure. Oh, what happened? It's not well,
we need
bless its little heart, because it stopped charging. There. Now it's charging again. Well, good thing I had a lot of charge. Okay, now am I back in business? Okay, let's make sure. Yeah. That is so strange. Why would it do that?
A classic technology thing during a class. Like, of course, why not?
Let's just drop your video. Well, it's plugged in, but it must have.
The sensitive little charging port sometimes.
It is a sensitive, I think that something about the outlet is sensitive. So I don't know. Here we go. I'm really liking this color that is blended up. I kind of want to just make it that the whole thing.
Yeah, I like that. It's like translating nice on camera too. It's good.
Yeah, and you know, these paints are not the fanciest. This is like what you might get when you're an elementary school student, and this is the paints they give you, but I really like the Prang, and I think that they're good. They're good price for if you're just like, I don't know, I'm gonna go and try to do this watercolor.
Agreed.
And then I'll talk at the end about some steps up if you want to spend just a little bit more money. And then like, there's always, like any hobby you have, there's always, you know, the fanciest equipment that you can get. But it doesn't make you a good painter if you buy fancy equipment. Just like it doesn't make you a good golfer if you don't buy really expensive golf clubs, right? or anything, any of those. I'm gonna
we're gonna pause just for a second. I just asked in the chat, but I had a couple people saying they still couldn't see Joan's camera. So will you all just let me know? I can see it on my participant screen, and I can see it on my presenter screen, but some people aren't able to see her right now. Okay, looks like we've got some that can. So if you're having difficulty seeing her, you can always leave the webinar and come back in and see if that fixes the problem, or check and see if you've got a view setting that's a little bit different, but you can always X out and come back in. Your spot is reserved until the webinar is over. So thank you for letting me know that some of you could see. That's super helpful. Yeah, so we're good to go.
Okay. And in a minute, I'll make sure that it's still charging so that it doesn't
We don't
kick
lose
us
you.
off again. Yeah, because that would be a really bummer. All right, so I'm just going back. I added some stems to those circle leaves that I did. And just adding another layer to my other green zinnia leaves. And what would be really nice is, here, what I'll do, let's just make it really light with some more yellow. We're gonna do some lighter zinnia leaves too, that just are more transparent than those original ones, like they're behind. Oh yeah, I forgot this one over here. This one. Okay. So I'm looking at the time. I would say we have about, I don't know, 5 more minutes to work. What do you think? And then we can do questions, or what do we think we want to do here?
Yeah,
How's it going?
I'd say let's pose that question to the folks here. Do you want to spend 5 more minutes painting, or do you all not have that many questions for Joan and you want to just do 15 more minutes of painting?
Yeah,
that's fine.
We can totally.
We're here till 8:30, and this is a class for you all. So
yeah,
if you have an opinion, let us know.
Because I thought if you guys have questions about paints, or because I do have some other paints I wanted to show you. I'm just going back and doing some more on my grapes here, but like just to talk about brushes, paper, what kind of paper to use. So this paper was the Canson, right, Laura?
Yes, this was the Canson, the XL.
Which is great. It's an inexpensive option if you want to, try it, but it's good paper. I really like it.
Yeah, I agree. And everybody too, you can also, if you have been painting and you have a wreath or another painting, I don't care if you didn't work on a wreath, you did something else, that's fine. And you want to share it with the group, go ahead and just let me know in the chat too, so that'll give me an idea of how many people would like to share today. I think we have not had a super chatty bunch. I think people are just painting. So
they're just working hard. Yeah. Way to go, you guys. I love that. And I'm going to add a little bit of purple into my brown here to make it a little bit darker. One benefit of getting more expensive paints sometimes is that they'll be they have purple pre-mixed and pinks and things like that. And so if you're like, well, I really want this pink or whatever, it is sometimes appealing, because this pink wasn't what I planned, but I do like it. So I want to do some of these curly things from the grapevine, because that's adding a little bit of sparkle or whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to check my battery. I'll make sure everybody's charging and doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yes, they are.
Okay, cool. And we do have a couple people who have already let us know they'd like to share. So around 8:25, we'll go ahead and transition into some screen sharing. And then at that point, we can go a few minutes over too. That's fine. Joan, if you want to share with us some of your recommendations, I think that'd be perfect. So
totally.
We'll do about 5 more minutes of painting.
Okay, I'm going to do one more brown here. And then I want to do the summer so that you guys can read it better. And notice that there's a white space up here, and I'm kind of like, Later, I might want to fill that in with something, but for right now, I'm okay with that. I think that summer needs to be like a purpley blue. I don't know. I'm gonna get a little bit of green in there too. It's like a navy blue is what it's turning into here, which I'm okay with. If you are going to write a word, I mean, if it was a different word, just make sure you spelled it right before you start painting it. That's what I always
Like
worry
a
about.
tattoo. Once it's there, it's there.
Yep. Someone was like, oh, because sometimes, especially if you're talking and doing it at the same time, you're like, did I spell that right? Yes, I did.
I'm excited. We have, I think, 4 people who are going to share, that's exciting. Yeah. So, again, we're just going to watch Joan for another few minutes, and then we'll kind of get into our social portion.
Yeah. All right. So the middle of the zinnias, I feel like should be orange. This is just going to be, I don't want it to be that straight up orange from the palette. Oh, look, it's getting blue in there, so it's turning it kind of brown. So maybe that's what it's going to be. And just adding it in there was a little bit strong. Oh, I don't like that. Here, I'm going to put it some more over here. And I want to try to put some.
We have a question that's come in, which I think would be a good time to answer. Do you have any suggestions for layering after the first layer of paint has dried?
Yeah, so if you want to think about where a light source is, you could layer on one side to make a shadow, or you could just layer on what you feel is like the inside of a flower. Or see how I layered down here on this side of the leaf and on this side of the leaf, like the light would have been coming from here. But really, if you want to do it, I would say just if you're layering to create the shadow, keep it consistent on one side. But if you're just layering to create detail, like, or just adding more layers to make it darker, you can do it all over your shape. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, Erin, let us know if that answers your question. Yeah, it's like if you're wanting to do that like wet into wet where you get the kind of like fade with the colors, you do want to do that when the paint's wet, but you can kind of reactivate it sometimes a little bit too. I found it's different, but you can still kind of add a little water on top of a dried like leaf, say, and then add some more color in. I mean, it looks different, but you can still make it work.
Yep. Yeah, so just because it's dry doesn't mean you can't. You can just, oftentimes if it's dry and I know I want to do a bunch more like layers, I'll just do the same color, the same thing over the whole thing again, and then start. It's like you kind of start over almost.
Yeah, and she said that did answer the question, so thank you.
Okay. And I feel like I should have this yellow. I don't know. I feel like these guys should have gotten something over here on my sunflower.
That like does transform that flower kind of.
Yeah, I thought, oh, I forgot you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, all of a sudden the petals kind of jump off the page now.
Yeah.
So something so simple changes the so severely. That's not the word I want to use, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like it's crazy how your eye will interpret that then differently. These may not be my best sunflower petals ever, but You
You're
understand.
doing a
me.
live class. You get what you get.
That's
sometimes.
right. That's right.
It looks great though. I especially love that sunflower on the bottom right. I just think it looks so nice.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do this.
Okay, so I'd say I think we're ready to kind of start sharing some screens. Is there anything you want to share? This is kind of going to be me talking out loud to Joan. Sorry, everybody. Is there anything else you want to share with your camera at that at the bird's eye view? Or are you ready to switch back to your face, or do you want to just leave it here for now?
I think that that's good for the bird's eye view. When you're done, the only thing I will say is that when you're done, like, and all this is wet, just leave it to dry, because if then you try to like, or you could always rinse it out in the sink if you want to. But if you want to save your color, like if I wanted to do my zinnia tomorrow, just leave that and let it dry. Tomorrow, come back, have some clean water, and you can reactivate it, and then you have your color again that you can use and finish your painting if you're not done. And so that's how we save the colors that we mix, is you just leave them in your palette, and or if you remember what you did, then you can recreate them. But otherwise, I just leave them so that I can use them again.
Yeah, and leave your palette open like that. If you close it, I mean, of course, it's going to flip all that wet paint into the palette, but you can leave it open and letting, like, it can dry. You could seriously, like she said, you could come back and your color is right there. So it's so nice.
I'm just getting it a little bit closer.
Yay!
Hope it's not blurry.
No, it looks great to me.
See. Yeah. So you could do all kinds of things. Those are just the basic rules for how to make a watercolor flower wreath.
I love it. Joan, thank you so much. I personally enjoyed that, and I think a lot of other people did as well. Someone who will be sharing their painting later. Let me see what she said, just because I thought it was so sweet. She said that it's been very relaxing and fun, and she's been like jumping around trying different things, but has a good wreath going. So that's Donna. We're gonna meet Donna here in a little bit. But I'm going to start. Give me just a second. I'm gonna transition Joan into her face view.
My other personality.
Joan 2 is going to be coming in here. So just a second, we're going to lose all the screens for just a moment. And now I'm going to bring computer Joan here, and I'll go ahead and pop back in here as well. Hi, Joan.
Hey.
Okay, we've got a few people, so I want to try to get this going. I don't want to keep everybody too late here. All right, so who's my first person we've got? Okay, I have, my goodness, Lee. Lee, I've got you first, so I'm going to add you as a panelist here. So you'll be able to share video and unmute if you'd like, and I'll go ahead and once you come in, I'll spotlight you so you're the big screen that everybody sees.
We just had another person say they can share also.
Perfect. So I'm kind of in the list right now. I'm at the person who said first, so I'll just start going down. If we can get to everybody, we'll do everybody. If we start to run out of time, then you can always tag us on Instagram or tag Joan on Instagram if you want to show. Lee.
Oh, looking great. I love that. Great shapes and colors. Ooh.
That looks wonderful.
Yeah.
I like how delicate your flowers and your leaves are. They're very like, there's a lot of movement.
Yes. It is a very, yes. And that looks like an evergreen. It is really nice. Their brushwork is really nice too.
I love that so much. Thank Thank you, Lee. All right, I'm going to move on to our next person. Give me just a second here. Okay. Okay, let's see. I think Rashmi is our next person.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be getting your notice here. Rashmi.
Hi.
Hello.
This was my sample, but I was practicing,
Mm-hmm.
and
Love it.
then I tried to do that, but
Great.
I didn't have my eraser, so the pencil marks were going. When I
Yes.
tried to erase it with the regular eraser, they were leaving a mark.
Yep.
So I changed it like this. So maybe I'll go back and try to finish it.
Yes, so that's the thing is if you use your pencil and then after you paint and if there's still pencil, yeah, make sure you have a clean eraser and then make sure all the paint is super dry and then just go back and erase it.
I will do that. Thank you.
Looks
That's
great.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love your flowers. Looks like you painted a lilies, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Love it.
Gorgeous.
Okay. Thank you. Let me get back here. Okay, let me see who I've got next here. Okay. Rashmi. Oh, Donna. Donna, we are ready for you now. So when she comes in, I can see the out your back window, Joan, and I'm like, oh wait, it's still light outside.
It's still light outside. It is awesome. It's not totally dark.
I love it. I think this is the first webinar I've done where it hasn't been pitch black by the end, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
there
All
we
right,
go.
Donna.
I think I hit all the right buttons here. So
You did.
Okay, so yeah, like I kind of got my thing going, and like I said, I kind of been jumping around to try different things, and I need to go back in. One thing was, I was trying to think what my question was. It was more or less about just trying to shade things, I guess. How is
And
the
that
best
looks like a
way?
ranunculus to me. That the red ones look like ranunculus. Like that's a
Oh.
bud, and those are other. And so those have like super many layers of petals. And so if you want to look that up, and then the edges of them are kind of ruffly sometimes. And so if you were going to shade it like that, you would just do that and you'd have a lot of lines going around
Oh, okay.
that are squiggled.
And just
But
kind
if
of
you-
keep coming in. And
Yeah.
I do like all the different greens. I'm kind of a green freak, so I like to try to mix different colors of greens for
Yeah.
the leaves, which
I love
this
it.
was a lot of fun.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
For
Donna.
sharing.
All right. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? What am I doing? Stop video. Okay. And then we do have more, so I'm going to come back down. If I skip someone, feel free to tell me because I'm going through our chats, and we did have quite a few chats towards the end, at least with on Joan and I's end here. So Mary, you are ready to share, I believe. Yes. Let me come find you here. I think this is the most people we've had share in one class that I've been a part of, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we only have a couple people who feel comfortable, which is totally fine, but. All right, I'm getting Mary coming on here. Here we go. Oh,
Mary,
she's back.
she's back. Cool.
This is
Good.
literally my very first watercolor.
Yay!
I love it.
Way to go. Very
And
brave.
Mine was supposed to say sunny summer days down here, but I wasn't sure what colors to use. These are
Yeah.
supposed to be sunflowers, poppies, and hydrangeas.
I like the hydrangeas. They're very, I like the texture, how you got that kind of like dappling with the brush.
I would not think that was your first time watercoloring either. I like it. It's almost like a little, maybe not impressionist, but impressionist-esque.
Yeah, yes.
style.
I like
Cool.
it. And
So
yeah,
should
and if
I
you-
stick with one of these same colors for the words? Should I?
I would do a different color, and I would do like either a dark blue or like a dark gray. And what you could do, if you don't want to try to control your brush in that fine line, you can always get like a fine line marker and just do it with that, but still go over the pencil mark that you wrote it with. Yeah. Cool.
All right.
I
Thank
love
you.
it.
For sharing.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, let me get back here. Whoop.
All these sharing.
I know. Wow, she already stopped her video before I could even get to it. Okay, let me see. Was there anyone else in here? Kate. I think Kate. And then I think we have one more after Kate. So I'm going to say we'll do Kate, one more, and then I think we're going to cap our shares this evening.
Okay.
Let me get to Kate, just because I want you to be able to share your last little bit before we sign off for the evening as well. Okay, Kate, I am getting you set up. I really am so excited that so many people are sharing their projects today.
I love seeing it. This is what I miss about teaching in
Me
person, is
too.
being able to walk around and seeing everybody. And we always take a picture.
I know, the picture, the group photo at the end.
Yep.
Oh,
Kate, all right,
You
Kate,
see
we're
me?
gonna get you up here. Oops.
Let's see. Hold it up a
Here
little
we
bit.
go.
There you go. Oh, I see.
Yes.
Ooh,
Wow.
beauty. That is, those are some very pastel flowers, and that is a great job on having the contrast between those very light flowers and the dark foliage around it. Gorgeous. And it's not a traditional, it's just not a circle.
Yeah, that's
Well,
beautiful.
Yeah.
You've done a wonderful job.
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
I have to admit,
have you painted before?
not with watercolor.
Wow.
Okay.
So this is my
Okay.
first shot with watercolor. I really like it, actually. This is more fun than I was very intimidated. So this has been fun.
Well,
Good.
I hope that you continue and that you aren't intimidated anymore. Yeah.
Thank
We're
you, guys.
removing the watercolor stigma.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
You're like, it's not hard. It's not scary. Don't be intimidated.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. All right, I think I said we had one more. So let
Or
me,
get somebody, Bethan Owen.
Bethan. Oh, thank you. That is helpful. Then I don't have to go back to the list here. All right, Bethan, I'm looking for you. I found you. Okay, we're coming back to Joan till Bethan joins here.
Okay.
And then I'm going to catch up and make sure I haven't missed any chat things. I don't think I have, but. Let's see here.
Bethan's still there? Oh, she's still on here. Yeah.
Now, let me try to send it again and see. Oh, here we go.
Okay. There she is.
Bethan.
Sorry, I don't know.
Here, hold it back.
Oh, yeah,
it's
it
blurry.
It got so blurry for some reason.
Oh, blurry. There you go. Yeah, hold it
Hold it.
still and we can, yeah. That is really nice. I really like how you use the frame of it as the outside, because it's like you're looking into the wreath.
Yeah, I love that too.
Yeah.
It looks great.
Yeah, thanks for the
Love it.
class.
Everyone did such different who shared this evening, really interpreted it differently,
Yes.
which is one of the most fun and beautiful things about watercolor in general. So
Thank you for sharing.
yeah, I'm
Everybody
gonna
who
check
shared.
in. Okay, I'm gonna kind of check out of the chat, you guys, for a little bit. Joan, do you have any last minute things you want to share with folks? Any recommendations? Let's take them.
Yeah. If you guys want the paints that I really like, and you can get, I don't know if they sell these at the co-op. I'm not sure. I don't know. Last time I don't think they did, but they're the Prima watercolors. I really like these because I like the tins that they come in, and they always open up and have 2 palettes, and then they always have a blank swatch so that you can make the swatches of the colors, and I always keep that in with the paints. The quality of the paints is really good. So I think these are run up from like 20 to 25, depending on what set you get. But this is like terrain, and then there's woodlands, and they have pastel, and they have skin tones and all kinds of things. And so I kind of went crazy and I got a lot of them, but I like them because then you can take out the colors that you want and just make your own palette, especially if you're going and painting outside, and just have the colors that you know that you use the most. And yeah, the quality of the paint is really good. So if you want to take it up another level, but the co-op does, the art coop has all kinds of watercolor, from, you know, really affordable to the really fancy that's in there. They have the Beam watercolor paints, which are made from like non-toxic, really good earth minerals.
What was the brand, did you say?
They're called Beam paints.
Beam with an M. Okay.
Yeah, with an
I did put a link to the Art Coop's website too, if you all are interested. The folks there are so knowledgeable and so helpful. Anna just said, come in and we can talk if you're picking out paints. Yes, they really are so helpful, and they'll get you started. You don't have to feel awkward going into like a specialty art store and not knowing what you're doing. That's like, they make you feel so at home and comfortable. So yeah,
check it out. And they have paper, they have brushes, and so they can just get you started with the basic, you know, kit that you need if you want to take a step up, because it does, when you have the better pigmented paints, it does make a difference of the longevity of the painting and just the vibrancy of the colors on that paper. So, you know, get comfortable, and you can use some other paint and paper, and
yeah,
if you are really into it.
Yeah, you can invest, and you can invest. I think what's really nice about watercolor is you're using so few, you're not using that much paint, so your paint lasts a long time because you're mixing it with water. So you don't have to worry about that. And I see, Joan, you had a thought, so share it.
Yes, I had one last thought, which is when you are cleaning up, all you need to do is gently take your brush and have the stream of water running over it, and just go like this. There's no scrubbing your brush, and that includes when you're painting either. Don't do that. That will ruin your bristles over time. Just gently get all the water out of there. You shouldn't need to use any sort of soap, because if you do, it will be super hard to get out of there, and it can interact and interfere with your painting the next time and ruin your painting. So all you need to do is water until it runs clear, or you can get a clear little container that you can see that's white, and just keep going like this, and make sure, but just always make sure you're running the bristles like this as you would when you're painting. And that's all you need to do to clean up. And then you can reshape your tip like this, and then let it dry. So that's easy cleanup.
Wonderful tips. Thank you all so much for coming to this workshop. I feel like this was one of our more popular ones of this kind of summer series that we're doing. We had a lot of interest, so thank you. Thank you to Joan for teaching this evening. It was so fun working with you, and I think you really did teach everyone so much. You can always reach out to the library if you have questions. All that information is available on our website. I'm always open if you have suggestions for topics you'd like to see in this series, if we can make it happen. I mean, I do keep all of your suggestions in a spreadsheet and kind of look at it every season to see maybe what we can do. So even if we're not doing one of your suggestions immediately, I have them stored safely, and I do consider them. So thank you. I want to wrap it up here. So I hope all of you have a great evening. This will be available on YouTube. So if you want to come back and watch some more of Joan's painting, you'll certainly be able to rewatch. So thank you all for coming, and we will see you at the next workshop. We are not going to be doing a workshop in July. We are going to take a little break, and then we'll be rejoining in August. So please look for that information on the website. And you can look to sign up for the next class on August 1st, which is going to be another painting workshop, actually. So we're going to be kind of doing a little painting series this summer. Anyway, take care, everybody, and good.